Hit it.
Florida's going to hit it, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to the Xtreme Movie Show. We're going to be doing Creature from the Black Lagoon, and of course, we're going to have a very special presentation tonight because we have the young 20-something Professor Pixel, also from Central Florida, who's not in the Xtreme Studios in the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. And RDV, since you're from the Great Midwest, you worry about stuff like snow and ice and who knows what else, and maybe tornadoes. But I got to tell you, this Cat 4 hurricane getting ready to smash us. Florida man is an analogy for the Creature from the Black Lagoon because we're so saturated here. When the storm hits us, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm not making fun of it because I'm living on it. Looking here at all the chemtrails, and the Pinos Palace above my head, the cloud seeding going on, I'm just shaking my head. Creature from the Black Lagoon, there is a Florida connection, but I don't know if Pixel understood that. Not a first watch for me, but I'm curious, guys. An old movie that won on our vote. Is it a first watch for you guys?
Wow. So, story time. A couple years
Adam
ago,
Cole, baby. Sorry.
A couple years ago, Venkman and I started an exciting journey called Friday Night Flicks, where we would sit down and make a commentary to a movie that neither of us had seen before. Creature from the Black Lagoon was one of these films.
Yes, it was.
And you could still watch that. It's still on the channel. I wish I had had the time to watch it with our commentary, just to see what it was like. I really like this movie. It's hokey in a lot of ways with how silly like the fish face of the creature is, and he's gulping for air just like a fish would, and so you get that classic horror camp. Frankenstein is much better at being a serious movie than this one.
Absolutely.
But I still enjoy the hell out of this. We just had a conversation about Camp on Colombo.
Yes.
It's so much fun.
Yes.
RDV, you must have some initial thoughts about this.
So I didn't have a chance to go back and look at see what my thoughts originally for the first time. Because watching the second time, it is still hokey. Now, I've actually done more research on actually like the making of this, and now that I know a see things, it's like how, because when I first watched it, the Pixel, and I was like, oh my gosh, he has no oxygen tank. But then you realize that he has a rebreather that's built into the mask, so he's able to breathe. And he has these special tanks they customize, because there are scenes in there where he's in the underwater and you see him swimming around. And it's like there's no tank that's visible. And the way they do it is really cool. Also, this is done inside a pool. Whenever you see them swimming in this is a pool. They took somebody's like rich person's pool, and just like California, and put like lily pads and all whatever all stuff on top of it too. Like the scenes where there's scenes with the boat though. I'm not sure if that's actually. I doubt that's in a lagoon, because they don't want to risk anybody getting eaten by alligators, so that's probably done somewhat, like, I don't know. It's remember, this is cool because this is before the CG stuff, so like they can't really like just have her like be somewhere else and then put her next the boat. So the boat had to been in some customized pool, but it's really cool how they like how the making of this. Now, what's really about this, what I really like this is that Julia Adams steals the whole entire show.
How so, sir?
19-year-old girl moved to California and did this movie here. I think we've always mentioned this when we watch old stuff. How beautiful the women are! Wow. Just the way they carry themselves, the way they act. Her character in this was pretty much the target of, unfortunately, of some horny monster. They basically lost his mate, which you see in the beginning. They find like a fossil, and then they're like, "Let's go." Oh, they take it back. Like every character in here is really cool in here. Even the guy is like who wants to use the harpoon gun. He's like, "What are you giving a harpoon gun for? You never know when you might have to use it." It's like, I love that. So you got like the hunter, you got the two scientists, couple fiance, then you got the main scientist who his men were mauled to death. They're like, "Oh, a jaguar did this." I'm thinking like, nah.
It's always the Jaguar's fault.
I know, right? But it's shot in black and white with like this. The scenery, the music, everything about this it is a good movie. It's just kind of hokey in certain scenes, you know. But if you suspend your belief, it actually comes together pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree. I think one of the interesting things about this film is that being a Central Florida native and, you know, traveled around the United States and around the world and visiting a lot of different places in my time as an 80s teenager, I always thought when I saw The Creature from the Black Lagoon in the 80s, there was a resurgence of movies from the 40s and 50s being shown to the, you know, the 80s parents in that generation, right? So this is actually, I think, this, and then I think House of Blood was another one with Vincent Price or whatever, House of Wax, excuse me, were supposed to be 3D movies. And this one, whether you see it on TV or not, you can't tell that it's 3D, even though it was shot, and that was a fad and other things that were going on. But it reminds me of a time in the 50s where post-war you had the American boom going on. This is before high fructose corn syrup got in the American diet and fluoride in the water and everything else that's in current talks today. And so it's a simpler time. So the characters seem simple, but they are representative of what's going on. It's not a blood and gore fest. Doesn't have to be. No. It's not particularly scary. But the thing you said at the beginning with practical effects, I want to point out, because underwater photography, very dangerous, difficult to do. When in our sporadic James Bond reviews, as we're going through the series in order with Professor Pixel, the young 20-something, we'd already talked about Thunderball, which I think is incredible. That underwater footage there in the fight scene at the end, the third act, is absolutely phenomenal. It was something that was never really done before. And you got to give a lot of credit to The Creature from a Black Lagoon showing that it's possible, because Universal, as we've said before, was one of the first groups of film companies that said, you know what, we need franchises. We need to figure out how to transition from the silent medium, you know, to
comedies,
to this, to all that. And so they took stuff in the public domain, which then Disney took a lot of it on their own, which they were smart to do that in their own way. We can argue if that was good or not, but this one was kind of Universal's own thing, where it wasn't based off of novels and stuff. So even though it's not particularly scary or terrifying, a young kid could watch it. If you're 8 or 9, and back then at the time seeing it, there is a creepy kind of fish-like soullessness looking at them because, you know, because of the suit. Am I right? It is kind of creepy that way.
One of the first haunting like shots of the creature underwater, like it looks like his eyes aren't there.
Yes.
And he just looks so like.
There's
actually, what's the term? There is a term, a phobia.
Aquaphobia? I don't
know. No, of basically a fear of large creations underwater.
Well, I don't know what it is, but I have it though.
Comics and stuff like that. That's what it reminds me of.
I don't know. I don't know what it's called, but I do. I have that. I will never go on a boat because you don't know what's under the water. Especially when they start showing these giant 20-foot long squids and the stories of ships being attacked by whales and squids back in the day. Look, I'm good.
When you're here's the interesting thing about Florida, and what makes Florida a little bit unique, even from say Southern California or even Southern Texas, because we're basically our own ecosystem here. So in the springtime, we can still get to 80, 85 degrees, maybe down to 40 at night, a couple of nights. But there's a part in the center of Florida where there's some springs. There's a spine in Florida because otherwise we're swamped, we're basically sea level. But in these areas that have these natural springs, with the spring water that comes up, you'll get manatees that come in, and they're really big and massive. If you're out swimming on the coasts, particularly on the Gulf part where the hurricane's getting ready to come through, if you're on a boat or you're swimming around, you can have sharks come right up to your ankles in like 1 foot of water, and people think that doesn't exist. Some jellyfish that might wash up on shore, huge. And so if you get stung by one, that's nasty. You'll have sharks aplenty. You'll have all sorts of things. You'll have dolphins come up and play. So it is interesting if you like that sort of thing. It is kind of cool. But one thing you definitely can get used to is seeing really, really big things. Not like whales and stuff you get in the Pacific Northwest or way deep or whatever. But that's one of the things I think that makes this work, is you're starting to see shows that would start to come up, whether it's Richard Basehart from the recent Columbo episode we talked about. I believe he was the captain in was it 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or whatever that TV show was in the 60s that was on for a while. And then you also had Flipper, right? Which is, I think, might have been filmed in Florida, about dolphins and their intelligence and that stuff. So you're definitely getting to where scientists in the 50s and 60s, science fiction wise, not to take too much of a tangent here, we're getting involved into the mysteries of one of the last places on Earth, and that would be oceans and bodies of water.
Well, the other thing about this is that this girl in the 1950s, you know, science fiction was really wrapping up in that time.
Yes.
It's black and white. It's, you know, this is in a remote part of the Amazon, unexplored. You know, there's because that's the one thing we said. We've explored the space, but we never explored our own oceans. So you don't know what's really down there. But yeah, you know, plus there's always these conspiracies, the aliens, Bigfoot, and all that stuff. So it really wraps in that kind of paranoia. And then going on uncharted territories. The first thing I thought about this movie is like snakes in the water, because you see the alligator and he honks the horn. It's like the African Queen, and he's like honks the horn, get out of here, and the alligator jumps around the water.
Okay, but let me ask you this, RDV. A little while ago, a really popular movie that when we restarted our polls are, which is what the Anaconda. Yes. We talked about it not particularly being scary, but there was
disturbing.
But the look of it was done really well, and I don't know how you're going to make a half man, half fish creature more realistic than this.
So I gotta say, that's more modernized. Like this, I said, this is more like back then, the way things were perceived, the mindset. Like we didn't really know everything. We haven't gone to space yet, so there's a lot of unknown. We've only did 2 world wars. You know,
you only did 2 world wars.
Well, we're on the 3rd one now.
We're not.
Yeah. Well, no, we're going into the Korean War. You know, and that's, as I said. Anyway, this was meant for like kids like ages 12 to up to like probably 2022, and you took it with your girlfriend to go watch. It's a scary movie. No, so it kind of aimed for them, a popcorn film. And this was kind of like back then days, like this is like you'd scare your girlfriend, like, well, what if they really exist? And she'd all freak out and she'd all snuggle up to you. This is that kind of movie. Nowadays, we look at this, we've seen so much. Seeing something like this, it doesn't really scare us.
That's true. No, that's absolutely really, really good point, because back then there was still the fear of the unknown. And I've even mentioned, you know, the whole response to World War II with nuclear weapons was Japan being so isolated on themselves and how they are as a culture. That's the whole thing with the Toho company and Godzilla, what it could represent, right? And what is a metaphor for it going to be. It's not prehistoric fish creature or a prehistoric that scares us. It's the fact that it's from the unknown, and that on some primordial sense, we believe that, you know, creepy crawly stuff is just disgusting.
For me, I do have a fear of like underwater, something grabbing underwater. You're in murky water there. First of all, and she's like, I'm just going like this. I'm thinking like, you're asking for trouble. It's like, you know, and we already had 1 murder upstream. They don't know what it was. And then later in the middle in this movie, I forgot what his name is, but he killed my brother, the demon. And then you see the flips. It's like, at that point, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna stay in the boat, but you know, at least they all have those nice repeater Winchesters, you know, the rifles. Shoot the blanks, you know.
Yeah. You know, Vinkman, you should look up submechanophobia sometime and see.
Dude, I've seen the movies where they're in the sub and the sub.
No, nothing to do with submarines. Well, I mean, partially to do with submarines, but no, it's there's some fun stuff underwater.
Like I said, I've watched stuff with people there's even a report about that guy who got his boat capsized, you know, in the middle of a wave hit it, and he was a 1 of 20 men that survived, but he was on like a raft and he has a bottle of Coke. He was down there for like 2 or 3 days, and he had what I appreciate this, because just like that guy in the ship had to be rescued, they had to adjust the barometric pressure going up. In this movie, same thing too. We're introduced to the scientists, and Julie Adams and her boy, or I think Richard Carlson he plays her fiance. And I gotta point out real quickly, I'm going back to the Bogart movies. Like she's 19. He looks like about 40. But I know, and that's the thing though. That was more common back then. Nowadays, it's not so. It's kind of rare.
It's more common now. I would disagree with you on that.
I would say age gap, the bigger gaps are probably closer. You're not going. But
it's
anyway,
considered more taboo back then, and the average life expectancy wasn't so high back then as it is today. So you have a bit bigger spread today.
Well, now we got 6-year-olds going after 19-year-olds. As I said, it's
remember. Let me make this comment right here that hopefully you understand, and everybody does too. No matter what we say as guys, no matter what's going on, and any women listening right now can verify me or shut me up. Women do the choosing. So it's not that the 60s going after the 19. The 19 says, the 60s got something I want, and I'm going to let them have it. That's just how the world works, bro.
Yeah.
Women do the singling and men do the chasing, period.
It's called money and comfort and this endless credit card. Anyway,
so what exactly is the creature from the Black Lagoon after here?
Well,
a new mate, if you will, young. Well, he must be really old.
That's the thing I always thought about this. So then they're in the scene when they see the guys are down, the two guys are for the first time they dive down there, and they have this is like I love these double tanks like they're wearing, and they have like the 2 tube stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't really see that as often anymore. I just see one person just wearing a mask, and that's about. You don't see the big giant tubes anymore, and as far as scuba gear. So that's always cool to see that when you go back to these older movies. But when they're down there, they're going there, and then you see the thing come out of the trench, and it pops up at you, and they're kind of like there are jump scares in there. Like it is kind of creepy. And like when she's in the water and she starts treading in the water, and they're like, "Come back to the boat," and then first something grabs her leg, or at least almost touches her leg. She goes down, she swims down like I'm gonna go look and see what it was. Like, and then it hides. And then she goes back up, and I'm just thinking, like, as she's swimming, it's swimming underneath her. It's like, that is freaky. Like, it is. That's what I think of, whether it's a merman or whatever. I don't want anything near me when I'm in water. That's why, and also, I don't want to go in lagoons because I don't know, diseases are in there. That's my other thought too. But it's, like I said, it's disturbing. But for being black and white, it's done, shot well. When I remember when Pix and I watched it on our first time watching it, we were just cracking jokes. We were laughing just the way people reacted to things in this movie.
Well, it's fun. This is a very it's a fun classic monster movie. I enjoy it a lot.
It's to me, it's much more lighthearted versus watching Frankenstein.
Oh my God, Frankenstein! There's nothing lighthearted about that.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah. We've dumbed down Frankenstein over the generations now, where we don't think
monsters.
How serious it is. Well, but this is what happens, right? So, like, to me, when you have something like Creature from the Black Lagoon, I agree with you. I think visually it's very simple. It's fun to watch in that regard. The black and white part to it and the way they do the set pieces add to it. There's nothing distracting you in the background or whatever. It's not like Piranha from 10, 12 years ago where there's a bunch of TNA in it, and it's a goof in itself. There at least is an element here of, I don't want to say horror, but like a thriller where you are being chased. You don't know what it is, the fear of the unknown. It might be done very basic, but I'm trying to put myself in the position of being there 70 plus years ago and going, this probably is a little bit more scary than what we're thinking now, only because there wasn't so many things like it. Back then in the 50s, there was very little media out there consumed that had to do with serial killers and this and that and whatever. So you didn't have a chance to see all that. So this probably had a level above what we would think of it now.
The only thing I would have been cool if they would have added blood packs. So when they shot him in the cave, you see like it actually is hurting him. Otherwise, it's like he's bulletproof, and then he's like just floats down the water. But
well, I mentioned the beginning.
So for the second time, because I saw it before, and when we watched the black and white version. I watched it colorized this time. There is, like, as he's sinking into the water, you see blood like leave him.
Okay.
There's a specific liquid. It's not like it's added just for the colorized version. There is the implication of blood leaving his body as he's sinking into the water, showing that the creature is dead.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned there are springs here in Central Florida. There's a certain spine that kind of divides the state in half a little bit, and it's not very wide. But Silver Springs is the name of the park where I think some of this might have been filmed, and they were known. Lloyd Bridges, I believe, actually, if I remember correctly, as a kid used to do commercials for it because you could see manatees, you could see stuff, and so they had these glass bottom boat tours that you'd get on. And I remember going down there as a kid. It was interesting because if you were young in Florida, obviously you go to the beach, but unless you're a surfer, you're only going to go to one side of the Florida beaches. Again, I've lived here my whole life. I can go to the beach anytime I want. Once you get it out of your system, or unless you live out there and you make your living there as a fisher. I know a guy that runs charter boats and stuff. He's out there all the time. That's his lifestyle. You kind of forget about it. But when you're a kid, it's very impressionable to see what it's like to be in springs. But here's the thing. Springs are not very deep. You can see. Yeah. They're not like lakes in the Midwest or mountainous areas where they're dark and muddy and whatever, and springs are cold.
Honestly, it's called the Black Lagoon, so I was expecting to be murky.
Yeah, exactly, and muddy. You don't know what's in there because you can't see.
So the reason it wasn't, though, is because they filmed it in a pool. all that chlorine. Because imagine you're trying to swim on there, you open your eyes up, and it's all blood. No, you can't. It's all pitch black. You can't see. So,
but you can't watch Anaconda or some of these movies without thinking of this movie, right?
No. Yeah, this is the very first movie it has to deal with a monster in the water. I just never realized like how like the Donovan's like he's just horny. He hasn't had a mate in like probably 15 million years, bro.
Nothing is stronger in life than the natural drive of getting your DNA to the future, whether you're a man or a woman, and how it goes down.
Or fish.
So I want to point out something too about this, and it says, and it was really, really weird about this. 1954 when this movie came out. So obviously back then, it's an well-known fact there was a lot more people that believe in God. So in the beginning of this movie, they said God created everything, for 7 days, and then it says then immediately goes evolution. I was like, yeah.
I don't think of it like that.
It was so weird because they showed the ocean. That then life was on at the created the ocean. Then there's life became, and then then it went to dry land. I was
not to turn this into a religious.
No.
I'm just thought that go into the idea that evolution was a part of God's plan. That the 7 days actually were many, many, many years, not just days.
So according to the British Christian Bible, it wasn't many years. The Earth is only 6,000 years old. So I guess when they went to the 15 million years later, it's like choose one. Don't just combine them both. It was just kind of weird like that. Obviously, I'm surprised they even mentioned God at all. They could have just went to the Big Bang Theory. That would have been much more believable with the 15 million years crap. But that's a little nitpick I had. I just found it kind of funny that they did that. I was like, you mentioned God, and then you go into horror, science fiction. We're gonna do evolution.
And I know, again, this is what always happens when we talk about these things. We kind of think are a little bit lighthearted, but you mentioned something at the beginning, RDV, I wanted to bring up too, because I got to bring it up. I know, what was she, 19 or 20 with this movie? Julie Adams, the actress. Yeah. She's stunning.
Yeah, she is. The way when they're in the scene when they're looking at the film and everything, and I'm talking about the claw and stuff, like on the bottom of the boat, cabin of the boat. Like all of that, like the way she delivers her lines, everything, she's captivating. Every guy in that room, I guarantee when she's on that boat and she's walking around with a little shirt, had a thing for her.
Well, here's the other thing I wanted to mention about her. Not only that she's attractive, I think, objectively speaking.
And smart.
Well, I'm wondering how, for lack of a better word, I'm wondering how risque this was for her. Not that she's 19, but she's beautiful, she's soaking wet. It's not like she's wearing a long dress and
she had the one piece
back in some of the films with the 40s that we reviewed, a few of the Bogart ones and all that with Lauren Bacall and all that, there are specific ways that things had to be communicated in a film that would not that you can get away with today. Like if you're going to basically say, hey, let's go up to the room and screw, you can't picture Lauren Bacall saying it, but when she's looking, not blinking, and making a comment about how to do something, that's exactly what she means. It's just the way she's doing it back then was, kind of cutting edge. Here, I wonder how risque her outfit was in here too, because it's exactly, as much as we're joking about it, whether you're thinking in terms of religion or scientific principles, this guy needs somebody, so he finds it. And I'm a John Carpenter mark, as everybody knows, and I like to always say, but I had heard about him being involved with Universal when he did The Thing, but that bombed, and E.T. was really popular. He was going to do a remake of it, and I've heard it, and I refuse to see the Guillermo del Toro one where the lady has relations with the fish. Basically, he did what this movie doesn't do, and I don't know if that was a good movie or not, because technically I didn't see it, but I thought, no, that's just dumb. There's no way I'm going to see it. But I just thought, for what this movie is, it's refreshing to see something really that's old, that's on film stock. It's not digitized in a way. It just still looks really good. It's very sharp. There's not a bunch of grainy lines like 1960s government science footage that you would see growing up in the classroom. It's not a bad film at all.
So you bring up Anaconda earlier, and I'm just thinking about the boats are sort of similar.
Yeah, exactly. The way I look when I saw Anaconda, I was like, man, this kind of reminds me of Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, right? They're just going down the little river, and then they have to push stuff away just to get into the Black Lagoon. I like archaeology, so getting to see the archaeology a bit in here. They're basically we got to bring like 6 more guys so we can get this the rest of the skeleton out, and then they find there's nothing in there. But all the whole time, the girls went into the water, and they just you see the hand goes up, and then it goes pulls the claws in the mud. I'm like, come on, it just looked like sticks were going in the mud.
I will close with this, and then I'll ask you guys, what your final thoughts are. I know that Tuesday night we're going live with Tulsa King, the next episode live, and I think before that we're talking about reviewing perhaps offline or online. We haven't decided yet. Yeah, Salem's Lot. So we'll talk all about it. But one of the things I wanted to say about Salem's Lot is that's related to this movie is that you hit the nail on the head when you said people do their version of something and how they do it, and that's kind of what we want to talk about, how we think something, whether we like it or not, and how it's effective or not. For what this movie is, it's very effective. It's done very well. Salem's Lot, we'll talk about this on a more in details thing. So guys, be interesting if you guys have any thoughts about Salem's Lot, because normally that would be a movie I go, there's no way, RD would want to watch it or
to
whatever.
Not confuse anybody, we're talking about the remake that's on Max right now.
Correct.
We already reviewed Salem's Lot. It's on the channel. It's in a playlist. So check it out. I put all the horror movies and all the stuff, and like in the universe stuff, all in one convenient little playlist. You can go on the homepage.
So based off the fact that you guys reviewed this as a first watch years ago as a review, now having rewatched it and talking about it now, I was going to ask you guys, was there anything different about your review that you noticed?
Well, I can't remember the first time watching it as far as what I said about it. I probably did say it was hokey. I can at least say that. But the scenery is done well. The girl's smoking, and like I said, that risque scene, when you see kind of like she's got the shirt on, but you don't realize she's got a one-piece bathing suit on. And it looks like she's got like maybe normally today it would be a bikini underneath, but you don't sell because the shirt's on.
But and that would be distracting and take away from the purpose of feeling that she's in danger by going, oh my God, check out her assets.
Yeah, like you said, just seeing. I didn't watch. Bitchute watches in color, so it's probably a lot more different things. It's like when I read the Walking Dead black and white versus color. I noticed a lot more things. So you notice the blood. That's a big thing when he's if they shoot him, because otherwise, out of the black and white, I was like, they're shooting him, but it doesn't show up in black and white, as Nerdy Texan says. It's kind of hard to do that, That's why Hammer films were made blood. They made it very red.
Absolutely 100% correct on that. See our Hammer films list there too.
Yeah. So honestly, that's not I can notice is kind of different. Is like as far as not much for me, but I mean, like I kind of want to see the color version now. But I'll probably wait because a lot of these movies, and it's sad to say for me personally, once I watch a movie, I try to watch it again in color. Especially after I just watched it in black and white. It loses the appeal to me because I already know what's going to happen. It's been 4 years or at least 3 years since we watched this the last. So I kind of forgot a few things. That helps out a lot when you want to watch review movies. That's why I personally prefer that. Pixel's probably different. He's probably I can just watch it and be fine.
Well, the difference is, I like to say here on the Xtreme Movie Show, I'm the 80s teenager, you're the next guy, and the Pixel's the young generation. Nerdy Texan's bringing up a really good point about remake of like Knives Out and stuff, and it's true because, again, back then, people would take their source information if they were going to be inspired by something from literature, classic stories. And I think here, you got to give Universal credit for trying to have the idea of establishing things that would become
sound stage, all that stuff is great.
Exactly, and then Hammer Horror Films said, you know what, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it the British way. We're going to colorize it and sex it up a lot with all the appeal. I know Pixel, you and I last year, I think we reviewed the Karstein trilogy of the vampire lesbian stuff that sounds kind of hokey and cheesy.
Movie, I hate myself for it. I missed that last movie.
But the point is they're actually done with some actual writing and some thoughts about men and women relationships in mind, rather than just being camp. And even though Creature from Lagoon, to our point, is probably a little bit campy, again, it's pretty decent. Again, it's not. It's survived the test of time, and I don't know if at the time it thought it was going to do that. Now, Pixel, what were you going to say?
My final thoughts are pretty much. Again, I saw this 3 years ago with Venkman. This go around, I wasn't laughing as much. Like you notice the hokey things. You notice the hokey things, and that's fun and all. But no, it's done serious. You feel that they were taking this seriously when they made this like a horror movie, and that's what's important. You have to take what you're doing serious, or it falls apart. And
the other
back Lagoon is very good in that respect.
I want to say it because we're watching together. It probably is more humorous because we're cracking jokes.
I know.
When you watch it by yourself, it's like then you actually pay attention more, and you're like, yeah, I agree. It is still kind of frightening a little bit, but the more the show, but once they get into like when he's in the cave and he's like, he's walking because he's walking on flippers because he can't walk that much because of a rubber suit. Like that's when it loses its appeal to me. I'm just thinking, and yeah, and I was just thinking if they ever modernize this, there always be some guy freaking vaping, and like that's like don't ever modernize
in the 80s that you threw in a comedy sidekick character, and so when something would be serious, you'd have a goofball in there, and it would bring it down.
Yeah,
unfortunately, that's just the way movies have gone.
Nerdy's talking about the sequel to the sequel. Like I said, we got a list of movies Universal that we're doing through first. We're gonna put one on the polls. Whatever wins that poll, we do that, and then we'll do a second round. And then maybe Rob and I will do another one because we're going to start recording some stuff offline on Tuesday nights before we go live for the Old Man episodes. But yeah,
you know what movies will be on the poll for Tuesday? Invisible Man.
Well, Invisible Man was already on there,
so they'll be on the new one.
So we also have the Wolfman has maybe Bride of Frankenstein. I'm not sure.
We'll see.
I don't know. The Hunchback got a lot of views though, a lot of votes.
It did.
So that's gonna have to be on a future poll or a future probably. I don't know. I think I might just do that separately without doing a poll because that out of everything that got voted on so far in these polls, 2 polls, that got a lot by itself for second place. So yes. I feel like that's already a shoe-in. We're going to do that regardless. Yeah.
It was a surprise to me that there was that much interest in it, pleasantly so.
I've never seen it. Like I said, it's not. It's started view. It's considered a horror / romance. So yeah. I don't know. It's the 1950s. I mean, when I honestly, I would rather want to do Dracula from 1931 because the 30s movies are always great, but sadly. We got beat up by Frankenstein, but Frankenstein it was actually pleasurable. I enjoyed it. So we're gonna have a bunch of more list movies on there. So check for that. I'll probably put the poll up probably tomorrow or tomorrow night, or earliest by Tuesday morning. Yeah, just make sure you vote on that.
Any must-see Halloween reviews you want us to tackle, guys? Let us know so we can cover it. Like I said, check out Salem's Lot. The one thing I will go out and say right now, without giving any spoilers, is the one thing RDV and I definitely agree on. It's probably, like I said, my Gordon Ramsay imitation. Stunning, visually, quite brilliant. Phenomenal film to look at and watch. It's definitely worth watching. They've did a lot of things here right with the guy's vision. And whether or not there are things about it we don't like, we'll discuss that later, but check it out. It impressed me, and it impressed RDV as well.
They did not modernize it. It's still set in like this late 60s, early 70s. So
thank you.
Yeah, so there was no smartphones. There wasn't like crap. They kept the cars, and just everything was done pretty well. And it's shorter than the actual other TV live action movies, which was actually done in 2 parts. But visually striking. Music's done well, acting is done well. I liked it a lot. So, that being said, though, if you guys have any recommendations for other movies, leave them down below. Like we got a recommendation for the second part of the sequel to this. If you have any other movies you think that should be in the poll that are part of the Universal Monster movies that we haven't done yet, let us know down below in the comment section, and I'll make sure to put them in the polls.
Absolutely. Sounds great. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. Obviously, taking time out and spending it with us, listening. I think it's just a pleasant thing. There's you put no price on that too. We've grown a little bit this year. We're looking to add more content. We'll thank RDV and Professor Pix for joining. Like I said, we have 3 generations of viewpoints here talking about stuff, whether we like it or not, what we thought worked or not, and that's all we do, guys. Is give us.
We got my yes. So down below we got my dad, then we got my son.
Not your son. Fuck off.
3 generations.
I have here in the Xtreme
you.
Studios dungeon a lifelike replica of the creature of the Black Lagoon. He's a statue. You know what he likes to write on?
I don't know, but I don't know what you do with that statue.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Good night now.
Later, guys.
This was not